Please, for the love of Pete, stop spending so much time on your music. I know this is counterintuitive. You think, hey, the more time I spend on my music, but the better it's going to be, right? Right? No, actually, probably not. In fact, the more time you spend on your music, actually, the worse it can potentially be. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about why you should write songs fast, write your lyrics fast, and mix your songs fast. And I'll even give some tips on how to do this. So be sure to watch all the way to the end. And by the way, if you want a handy little checklist for how to write amazing songs, I have a 9-step checklist you can follow. Just click that in the description below or go to orpheusaudioacademy.com/HIT, HIT. This is a free guide. I looked at what are the common elements that all the hit songwriters tend to include in their hit songs, and I found 9 elements that all hit songs tend to have in common. So I put those in that nice little checklist for you. So definitely check that out if you're wanting to create great music. So the trap of putting in more time into your music. This is a trap that I fell into. I think, hey, I'm really going to take my time with this. I'm going to put so much time into this, extra time to the song, try to make it even better. And I found more often than not, whenever I do that, I end up making my songs worse. A big example of this was when I was putting together my album called Dream Architect. This is an album I originally wrote as a wedding present for my now wife. And I'm like, I'm really going to make this really good. Spend extra time. And what I ended up doing was adding in extra stuff that didn't need to be there, adding in more plugins that didn't need to be there, and mixing over and over and over and over and over and over, and rewriting songs, trying to make things better. And in the end, I think I actually made a lot of the songs worse. And by the end, I had lost all listening ability, all listening objectivity, so that at the end, I was like, I can't even hear what I'm doing. It just sounds like noise to me. I can't release this. This is so bad. Eventually, my wife talked me into releasing it, so I did. It's out there on Spotify. You can listen to it. I don't think the songs are that great, but they're not as bad as I thought they were either. So that happened. Since then, I've found that all my best work happens when I'm writing songs quickly, and it's not just me when it comes to this, because, right, when you finish something, right, if you're running a race and you cross the finish line, you don't win more by continuing to run, right? Oh, I'm going to go run another lap. The race is already over. You already won. So once the song is what you want it to be, once you finish the song and it's good enough, it serves its purpose. It creates the emotion you want it to create. It sounds good. Right, if it's a dancey song, it makes you dance. If it's a sad song, it makes you feel sad. Then it's done. You don't need to be doing more work and putting more time into this. And so really this comes down to, what is your goal? What is your goal with your music? Are you just wanting to do this for fun? Is it just a hobby? Then by all means, right, spend whatever time you want. But even then, I think that's kind of wasteful, right? Don't you want to have something to show for your hobby? So it really comes down to, do you actually want to build a business and make a living from your music? Do you actually want to impact others with your music? Do you want other people to be able to hear your music and have it impact them and change their lives? Is that what you're after? Or are you just trying to build the tallest ivory tower where you can kind of feel superior with your amazing music that you spent all this time on, and you can put it up on the shelf and you can look at it and feel proud, but no one ever hears it. No one is ever impacted by it. I know that sounds a little harsh, but I've come across this thinking in so many areas of art, not just music production, but also like novel writing, for example. And that's because that's another area that I'm really passionate about. I actually had a novel writing business, if we're a website, that I had before I did Kingdom Pen, or before I did Orpheus Audio. It was called Kingdom Pen. And I was a novelist and a writer long before I got into music. And I've even had a couple novels be finalists in annual novel writing competitions, but I've never actually put in the time to actually pursue publishing a book. So I'm like, oh, it has to be perfect. And so as a result, I never published anything. And right today, I don't really have the time with all the music I'm doing with my family and 4 kids. I still want to publish a book. That's still something that's a goal. And I'm just finding more and more, like, your time is limited. You don't have all this time that you think you're going to have. And perfectionism is going to derail your efforts to impact others with your work and to, change your life, right? Make a living through your art. So you got to be publishing your work and putting out more content, in this case, music. And so if your goal is to actually build a full-time income from your music and to impact others, then you need to be publishing a lot of music. And every indie artist that's out there that's making a living, they're putting out a lot of music. And so this is the way to be successful, is you have to put out music, even if you don't think it's the best, even if you don't think it's perfect. All right, this concept of, oh, I'm going to spend all this extra time, all the time in the world to make this perfect thing. This doesn't exist in any other area of life, right? We only seem to apply this to the arts, like we're some kind of superior field or something. For example, if you're like a mason or a landscaper or, you know, a trade or any other profession, right? You're on the clock, right? I used to do DoorDash, for example. And if you've ever seen like a landscaping crew come by, they're zipping through. Like you're almost worried they're not doing a good job, but afterwards you're like, actually, they did a better job than I could have done. And yet they were super fast. So we got to get over this idea that speed or length of time equals quality, right? This is such an outdated idea of thinking. You can do something fast and still have it be very high quality. In fact, that's what the professionals do. They generally can do something that's very high quality and at very high quality. Could that landscaping crew have done better if they spent more time? Actually, probably not, right? If it's done, it's done, right? It doesn't matter if they spend more time. And at that point, they're cutting into their profits because they're probably paid by the number of jobs they do. So if they spend more time on one job, then they don't have as much time to do other jobs. And so they're making less money. And it's the same thing for music. If you're trying to run a music business, if you're spending all this time on one song, then that's less time you're spending marketing. That's less time you're spending on a second song, on a third song, more songs that you can put out. So you really can't get sucked into that trap of thinking more time is going to make something better, because usually that's not the case. So let's look how this applies to songwriting and lyric writing. So when it comes to songwriting, you really want to enter what's known as flow state. So this concept of flow state was coined by a Hungarian-American psychologist known as Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and he recognized that the best work happens when you're in this flow state, which is a mental state of relaxed high performance. And you know you're in flow state. You've probably experienced flow state yourself before, but some characteristics of it are time passes rapidly, or you lose awareness of time completely. You completely forget about yourself and the outside world. You and your environment tends to kind of like disappear. Distracting thoughts don't enter your mind. You are completely focused. Great ideas come easily, and you're having fun. You only take a break when the call of nature threatens to overtake you. And so the benefits of flow state is you produce your best work in the shortest amount of time possible. Your identity disappears from your consciousness. Existence is temporarily suspended, is basically what it's like. So I have a blog post on my blog that kind of talks more about this. If you want to know more about flow state and how to tap into it, I'll have that linked in the description below. Now that's flow state, but believe it or not, flow state is not actually a mystical thing, but it's a real state of existence that you can tap into at will if you set up your environment correctly. But for sure, one thing that is going to knock you out of flow state is thinking too much and slowing down. You can't slow down when you're in flow state, right? It's like getting into the jet stream. You got to go fast and you got to keep up that pace. Otherwise, you risk falling out of flow state. It's kind of like you've uncorked the keg of creative genius and it's flowing now. The liquid, the magical liquid of creativity is flowing out of that keg, and you've got to collect it while it's running, because eventually that keg is going to run out, right? Eventually you're just going to fatigue or you're going to run out of time and your session's going to come to an end. So you want to capture all that goodness, all that creative goodness while it is flowing, right? The ancient Greeks referred to this as summoning the muse, right? The muses in ancient Greek mythology are these inspirational goddesses of literature, science, the arts, and they were considered the source of knowledge embodied in poetic lyric songs and myths, right? If you think about it, if you've ever done anything creative, music, if you've written a novel, painting, and so on, have you noticed that sometimes ideas just come to you and you're like, where did that come from, right? Maybe you attribute to yourself, well, I came up with that idea, but did you really? I know when I'm writing, just ideas they just come to me. I'm not like thinking up something. It just comes to me. Now, I think, any good piece of art, any good idea comes from God. I think it's actually God, not a muse. But that's kind of a good shorthand to think of it, is that, when I'm writing a song, I almost don't feel like I'm writing. I feel like I'm more discovering. I feel like I am uncovering something, or as like Michelangelo described, he sees the sculpture inside the block of marble and he's just removing the marble around the statue to reveal the statue. So that's what it's like. And if you slow down, it's going to be hard to keep those ideas flowing. So you don't want to slow down for that reason. Now, this doesn't mean you can't re-enter flow state in other sessions, but I tend to find that first session when you're creating your song, that's when the magic is most prevalent, and you really want to get that idea down in the moment. And you can come back to it and later and add to it, but I tend to find that inspiration isn't quite there. It's a little bit stale. So there really is something special about the songwriting process, I find, once you are in flow state and you're creating your best work. And so that's why you want to go fast, so that you can capture all of that, so that you can get into flow state. And so songwriting doesn't become this hard, janky stop and start process, because that doesn't produce the best work. So this is why going fast can actually help you produce better quality songs. I think the same thing can be said for lyric writing too. A lot of times, like, I'm in this emotional state that the song is about, and then I can just write the lyrics really quickly because I'm in that situation. I'm feeling those emotions. For example, a song that my wife and I are getting ready to release pretty soon. I'll probably have more content on the channel about this. It's called Innocence Lost. I actually wrote it for my wife with her in mind, as she's been uncovering a lot of childhood trauma and abuse that she went through. I wrote the song in like 2 to 3 hours, and then I wrote the lyrics in another 30 minutes and edited them, right? So I wrote the lyrics, and then I went through like, what could I change? What could I improve? I changed one lyric. One of the lyrics was Gilded Haze, and I changed it to Gilded Cage. And then one thing that really helped me actually write this faster was using a tool like GPT. So using AI is another way you can help speed up your process. I kind of write out what's the concept of the song, and then it helped give me some words and phrases and ideas that I could then assemble into a full song. So that's another way of speeding up the process and not spending as much time on it. I went through it. I'm like, I don't see anything that I could change, and spending more time on these lyrics isn't going to make me decide to change them because they work for the song. Another reason you have to write fast is because this is just generally the real world, right? I get paid to arrange songs for artists, and they usually have limited budgets. For example, this one artist can only had 2 hours, could only afford to pay me 2 hours for a song, so I had to write the whole song in 2 hours. I could have spent more time on it, but then I'm earning less and less money per hour, right? And my time is limited. I got other jobs and projects I have to do. So, okay, I have to write this song in 2 hours. And it probably took me a little bit over 2 hours, but it was under like 2.5 hours. And I think it was a really great song. The client was really blown away. He was really impressed. I'll actually link to this song in the description below if you want to check out this song. And I think it turned out pretty well. And again, that's been a pattern I see over and over again. The faster I write songs, the better they turn out. And if you look at artists who have taken a long time to write songs, it's usually it's not like they were spending hours and hours writing the song. Maybe they got started on it and then they stopped for a long period of time and they came back to it for a little bit and then maybe paused for another long period of time, then came back to it again. It's not like they were spending countless hours on the same song. It's more just it wasn't working in the moment and they were just letting it sit and marinate, and that's totally fine too. That happens to me a lot too. In fact, the Innocence Lost song I just mentioned, that was a song I originally wrote like 7-8 years ago. And I came back to it. I'm like, and it wasn't really a synthwave song, so I want to turn this into a synthwave song to fit with my current genre of music, and that I was able to transform in just probably an hour. So the original song I probably wrote in like 2 hours, and then I did an extra hour of songwriting on it, and so it was like a total of 3 hours. And so that's how it can work. So yeah, in the real world, if you're wanting to make a business, if you're wanting to be an arranger, a mixer, you have limited time, so you got to learn how to do things quickly. I also think it's important to realize you have more great ideas than you realize, right? A lot of times we write a song like, oh, this is so good, and I really want to take my time on this and make it extra good. I don't want to just release it because you have that scarcity mindset that, what if I don't create anything better than this later? So you got to believe in yourself and that I'm going to keep getting better, and I'm going to be able to write even better songs than this in the future, but not if I get bogged down here, right? The more songs you can create, the faster you can improve, and the faster you can get to your best work, right? This kind of taps into something in the writing world, for the novel writing world, known as the 1 million words concept, which is you don't actually start writing anything good until you've already written your first 1 million words of fiction. So that's a lot of words, and you got to get to that. I think the same thing can apply for music, right? There's also something called the 10,000 hours rule, right? To achieve mastery, you have to put 10,000 hours into anything. If you want to get to quality, it's not about putting in more time on one particular song, but it's putting in more time period, creating more things, and you progress faster by creating more new things instead of just rehashing the same song over and over. So put in more time seeking quantity. Make that your measure of quality, not the quality of any individual song, but how many songs am I producing? How many songs am I finishing? That should be your measuring stick. And you might find out maybe a song that you don't particularly like or don't think is great, it will really resonate with someone else and it'll become, one of your biggest songs. That there's countless stories about that of different artists. Journey, for example, with Don't Stop Believing, Toto with their song Africa. These were songs that they didn't really think were their best or would blow up, but now they're arguably their most popular songs. And this definitely applies to mixing because you run into listening fatigue when you are listening to the same song over and over again. I already talked about how this showed up in my album Dream Architect. And so when you're mixing, you need to mix as fast as possible because you're going to lose objectivity and you're going to start making poorer and poorer mixing decisions the longer you take to finish that song. So when you're mixing, you for sure want to mix as fast as possible. And to do that, it's really good to have a system in place. So that here's what I'm going to do first, second, third, fourth, and so on. And then the song is done. And so if you want a proven system that a lot of producers follow so that they know what to do first, second, and so on, so they can finish songs quickly and in a professional way, then be sure to grab my free song finishing checklist in the description below, or go to orpheusaudioacademy.com/mixing checklist. And this will walk you through a complete proven mixing system. So you never have to wonder what to do next and you stop mixing in circles trying to finish your songs. And you'll also produce high quality radio worthy music in the process. And this is again completely free in the description below. So I've talked about how this applies to all kinds of art, right? Music, writing. This also applies to artists in general. If you look at Pablo Picasso, the famous artist, for example, apparently he created over 147,800 pieces of artwork. Wow. Can you imagine publishing nearly 150,000 songs? That's insane. And yet he's considered to only have created 100 masterpieces. So what does that mean? So you have to create a ton of art to get to what's considered a masterpiece. And I don't even think Picasso's that great. I don't really care for his art style, but that's just shows kind of the concept that has been applied over and over for centuries. Is any professional in any industry, they have to put out a lot of output, but for some reason we artists, we think we're special. We think we're above the rest of the world or the other trades, the other jobs that we can just sit in our ivory towers creating this amazing art and never release it or something. I don't know. If you are something, you do that thing, right? If you're a mason, you produce mason works. If you're a landscaper, you maintain landscapes. If you're a writer, you put out writings, you put out books. If you're a musician, you put out music. And so if you want to be a musician, you got to be publishing music. Another artist who blew up simply by just putting out one song a week is Russ. All he did was put out one song a week that he produced himself. And then he would put out some just like short videos of him like singing along to different parts of his songs. And after a couple years of doing that, he finally took off and blew up. Another artist talking about this, who's an indie artist making a full-time income from his music, is Nick D. And there's countless and countless examples of this I could go into, but I won't in this video because it's already getting pretty long. But one of my favorite movies is the Buddy Holly story. And if you know that story, it's about the tragic story of Buddy Holly. But it's also a pretty amazing story because Buddy Holly and the Crickets, their first album, The Chirping Crickets, was released in November of 1957 and only 15 months before his heartbreaking death. But in those 15 months, Holly recorded 3 studio albums, 22 singles, and countless other tracks that would eventually be released as singles after his death. So by the time Buddy died, the Crickets had gone from an obscure garage band playing at the local skating rink in Lubbock, Texas, to the forefathers of modern rock and roll. For example, Buddy Holly influenced Bob Dylan, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Eric Clapton, Marshall Crenshaw, and Elton John. So basically, he is the forefather of modern rock and roll. And yet, he only was releasing music for like 15 months. And yet, he put out 3 albums, 22 singles, and a bunch of other singles. So if you think this is just a modern concept, it's not, right? And he was on touring all the time, playing in shows, marketing. That was the marketing for back then. So this is just what artists do. If you're an artist, you create art, right? You can't be spending all this time thinking you're going to be getting better results, right? If you do produce something better, it's only going to be very marginally better. You're better off just putting out more music, right? What if Buddy Holly wasn't so prolific? What if instead he's like, no, I'm going to spend a whole year to write one album instead of putting out 3 albums? Then we would have lost so much great music because he never would have been able to write it or publish it or record it, which kind of takes us to a dark turn here, but you don't know when you are going to die. And I don't want you to die with the music still inside you. Sorry to get dark here, but this is just reality. Now, I personally don't plan on dying, or at least not experiencing the same sting of death, because I'm a Christian, and so I know that I will have eternal life on the new earth. But that being said, I still don't know how long my time is on this earth, and I know I have so much music that I still need to release. So a big part of this video is me talking to myself, because I've not been releasing enough music. I've been falling into this trap, and I want to be able to get out more music and stop letting perfectionism hold me back. So I need to publish more music, and probably you need to publish more music too. Don't die with the music still inside of you. Right, my bucket list goals is to publish 100 books in my lifetime and over 1,000 songs. And so if I want to achieve that, I really need to get going on this. So you can hold me to this in this video, and let me know in the comments below, what is your bucket list goal? How many songs do you want to have published in your lifetime? Let me know. And by the way, if you'd like to hear my music, you can just go to AndromedaCoastMusic.com/listen. I'll also have this linked in the description below. So hopefully you found this video encouraging. And if you want more tips on how to write music faster, then click on my video playing on the screen right now. With that, have an awesome day, keep creating, and I'll see you in a future video.